What's up, you guys? We got a good old Buick on the lift. We got a bad hub bearing. So I ordered a bearing, and it is an ABS, so make sure you get the correct one. And what we're gonna do is, first of all, before I start any of the job, I want to see if the axle budges, because a lot of times the axle would be jammed up in the hub. So what I like to do is clean this up, and I did throw some WD-40 on it, and I'm gonna throw some more WD-40 on it, and I'm gonna loosen up this bolt. And if the axle moves, then we can continue the job by removing a lot of this stuff on this, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna be taking off this. We're gonna be taking off the caliper, the bracket bolts, so the caliper and the bracket comes off, and the rotor comes off. Once this comes off, our axle should be able to, the spindle should be able to release the axle somehow, some way. You'll see it. You'll see the whole thing. We might take this off. We might not take off the tie rod bolt here, but let's see if we can just maneuver things around this way. Okay, so start off, we're using 33 millimeter here. If you lubed it and cleaned it, should be pretty easy to come off. And let's see if the axle moves. Yep, the axle does budge. You see that? So we're good to go. So the reason why I wanted to check that first was because no matter what you do, if that axle doesn't move in and out, okay, it's not gonna come out of your hub, and you're never gonna be. I tried heating it crazy, banging it, bang zoom, nothing. I've had to replace the whole spindle, but that was that case. So at least it's moving. We're good to go. So let's keep moving it, and let's see what we can do. So what we want to do here is we do have this ABS sensor right here. Oops. So you want to squeeze this little tab, and you want to disconnect. If you get a needle nose plier, that will work out easy for you. Or a good old handy dandy flathead screwdriver. Squeeze each end of this tab, and this guy should just go back and come out like that. And all you want to do is you want to disconnect this little guy. So it does have little tabs on each end. So what you want to do is you want to open this tab up, and this gets disconnected. So now we're safe with the harness. We're gonna move over to the caliper and the bracket side, which is on this side. So if you left your keys in the ignition, you should be able to. Steering's locked. Usually you can turn it, and that works out really good. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off this bolt, and this one we could just slide the pin out of here. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna take this off counterclockwise, which way we going. So once this is loose, you should be able to turn it. If not, just keep it going with your ratchet. So this is it's a 15 millimeter. It's a 15 millimeter socket I'm using, and a 3/8 drive ratchet. Long leverage makes it easy for. So if this thing doesn't turn good, that means your slider pin is jammed up, and you might have issues. But this thing gonna need lubing, and we will lube this guy down the road as we put it back together. That falls back on the ground. So now we should be able to lift this little guy. If you can't, just use your flathead screwdriver or a pry bar. So I'm not sure if my camera was recording. I was just talking, and this freaking guy camera. So I took off this 15 millimeter, and I took off the caliper, and I hang that right here. And now we're gonna take off the 2 bolts on the bracket. Okay, so now we're gonna take off 2 bolts. That's gonna release our bracket. We're pretty much almost there to take off our water. We got one up here. Okay. So this is one, and here comes the second one. And as you can see, the bracket started to just move on its own. Sometimes you gotta wiggle it to get the second bolt out of there. And the rotor's moving also, so if your rotor's not moving, you might have to bang it a bit to get that out of there. And there you go, 2 and 2 bolts. We're gonna come out now. Okay, so if your rotor is jammed up in there, pretty much it's rusted, corroded in there, you might have to bang it a bit from the back front, and it should come off just like that. And once you have that off, you pretty much, so I said we was gonna remove all this, but let's not do any of that, because once we take off the bolts for the hub should just come out just like that, because we're not really removing the axle, we're just removing this hub bearing, and it should just come forward, and we shouldn't have to take off any of the bolts off the strut or the tie rod. So now what we need to do is we need to work some magic to get the bolts out from the back. So from back here, I matched up a socket. It's a 13 millimeter, and we got a bolt here. We got the bolt exactly on the opposite side, on this side of it. So 1, 2, 3 bolts, and I did 13 millimeter deep socket, 3/8 drive with a swivel, and a 1/2 inch drive from an impact gun. Hopefully that fits, and let's see how this baby goes. Sometimes they're jammed up, these bolts. They're probably super tight, super duper tight. They might not want to come out, but let's give it a shot. And you are gonna have to push this axle a bit back when you're doing this, and be careful your impact gun doesn't get rammed up in the back. So this thing does not want to come out, it's pretty jammed up, so I might have to do it manually. So guys, you're gonna have to bear with me. 1, 2, 3 bolts. When they're out, I'll show you guys. I went and got me a ratchet, the one I was using earlier. Put this on the 13 millimeter, and manpower it is. That's what I did, manpower. And this baby will turn. Okay, it's working out a little bit, literally. So let me just get my camera more further in. Okay, so this thing is not easy, the spot that it's in. So make sure you don't strip the bolt, but here comes nothing. It's loose. There you go. So this is the hard part, trying to get to these bolts. So they probably rusted in, jammed in, whatever you want to call them. They probably got thread lock on them. So it is very important to lock these bolts up. Okay, that's that. All right. They got pretty thick neck on them. The bolt has a like a washer type neck on them. So what I like to do is let's move on to the next one. I might use extension on the next one. Okay, so this next one here, it has a perfect slot right on top of this freaking axle. If I'm not blocking the camera view, I'm sorry, boys and girls. There you go. Push the axle a bit, and there you go. Right locked on. Okay, so I'm gonna hold on to this guy, and I'm gonna turn it, and I can see if the bolt turns from this end. If it's not turning, that means it's getting stripped. Something went wrong there. Don't know what, but I think my socket cracked or something. Oh, it didn't crack. It didn't crack. It didn't. It just bounced off. So another attempt. Okay. There goes nothing. This is attempt number 2. Okay. I'm gonna have to go off the camera because I need all that space right now. The 21 millimeter bolts, nuts. Those guys in the back of the bolts does not want to come out unless I put a direct impact to it. So check this out. We got this off. I'm gonna take off the tie rod as well to give me more maneuverability here. And let's pop this strut out first. Come on, little guy. There you go. axle supposedly, whatever you want to call it, do that and give you a lot of clearance in the back. But we're gonna take this out of there completely. That way you can see the whole bolt mechanism in the back, right over here. And we can see the whole thing. Shouldn't have come to this, but we had no choice but to get to this. A little bit more and the axle will come out, but this should be more than enough for me to put an impact gun right here. So let me gather my impact tools. Okay, so this one came out pretty easy, but this little guy right here says no. I want to only strip. And he still won't come out with the impact. Not go home until I get this baby out of there. So let me do a little bit off the camera. You guys know it. This is what it comes down to. And I'm gonna give it a attempt with the impact gun still. Did not go well at all. Ended up freaking taking off. My camera's low now. What the hell is going on? Okay, so camera's kind of low on power, but what we did was cut off the bolt. So this is what the bolt looked like. So they put this tiny little head on the back of the bolt, like they expect you to remove this. This thing is super locked in there. So I spliced the neck right there. Now it's time for us to bang, bang, bang. Gotta do it evenly. Oh, I still got one of the bolts in there. So let me get that bolt out and the hub should just come out. What we're doing here is I got the bolt off. The bearing should come off. Noticed this little guy, okay? This is your ABS, part of your ABS. Half of your bearing is broken and it's in there. Half the bearing is still in there. So, more work for us. So all I need to do is get me something such as extension, and just put it in the back and bang on it. There you go. There's the other half of the bearing. So it was shot pretty much. This is what we're looking at. Anyways, our next step requires a lot of cleaning. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to file clean this hub out of here. Be careful with the axle. Just go all around. You also want to clean this surface right here so your bearing can sit flush and there's no pulsation in the brake and there's no shake on high speed. Anyways, once this is clean, put some greasing on it and we'll come back and continue the job. Okay, nice and clean. And what we're gonna do is, remember this little plate, everything's clean, clean this off as well. So remember this plate was sitting in this manner, like it was sitting this way. So we wanna keep it the same way. So what you wanna do is you wanna put this is the new bearing right here. So put this right through and make sure everything just sits properly. All three bolts are, so we want to put this way. That way our ABS line is exactly the spot where we took it off from. So that looks good right there. And you're gonna have to work a little bit of magic here. A little bit of magic. It's gonna be a little tough, but let's see the bolts that I took off. I did put a little bit of thread lock on these. I used red. So don't complain to me, guys. So what I want to do is, so here's a red. I put red on these. Okay, and this one goes in from right here. Okay, and our connector is gonna come this way. So 3 bolts. When you get all 3 bolts in, lock this baby up, tighten it really nice, and then we're gonna start putting everything back together. Okay, so the bearing is in, spins freely. we're gonna bearing is locked in already, so we're gonna put this in right now, and later on you can just connect the connector right to it. We'll do that at the end of the video, but let's get this baby in. Should click, it should hold, and it should not come out, because if it does come out, it's gonna hit that axle. It's gonna break over time. Even if you need to use a strap tie, do so. So these are little tough little retainer, but you gotta make sure it's locked in. Okay, like this one is not locking in, so if it comes off, there's gonna be an issue. So you can even try it this way, but even if I gotta put a strap tie, I will do so. But anyways, the axle should go right in if everything is good, and the 2 bolts for this little guy goes right in. One on the top, one on the bottom. Okay, what happened here? There you go. I gotta do push on it. Yeah, these are studded bolts, so you have to hammer them in. Once you do that, everything should be go, and your 2 bolts should pull this right in. So now, if I take my, what is this? It's a 21. It's a 21. I had it right here. So pretty much for a done deal, make sure you torque the axle bolt. It's almost like 200 foot-pounds. Shebang. Anyways, that's it. All I'm gonna do is put this in, make sure I strap tire, or make sure I connect it really good, like it's supposed to be. Put the tie rod in, put the rotor, put the hub, the bracket, put the 2 bolts for the bracket, put the brakes on, put the caliper on, put the bolt for the caliper, put the axle bolt in, and I am all done. After that, make sure you take a test drive. Again, if you leave this loose, you're gonna have an ABS light and you're gonna damage your ABS sensor. I am all done, guys. Just a reverse procedure from here on. Make sure you put the bolt for the axle, and make sure you do torque it. Once it's on the ground, it's like almost I gotta look it up. Usually they're like 190 foot-pound or so. Anyways, thank you for watching my video.